Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk about the books I read in the month of December. So all of these 4 books were actually library books, and I don't have the first 2 right here with me because I had to bring them back. But the first one I read in the month of December was City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. And this was, I think, one of my most anticipated reads of 2019. I was so excited when I heard that she's gonna come up with this novel because I follow her on Instagram and I really like her. I think she's really a nice, genuine person. And I haven't read any of her fictional work before, so I was really excited to give it a go. I really like her writing style, and I really enjoyed Eat, Pray, Love. That's basically the thing of it. So I was excited to check out this book from her, also because the premise sounded really interesting. So basically this is set up similarly to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because in this one as well we have an older woman, Vivian, who tells her whole life to this person. So she writes this in like a diary form almost. Well, not kind of a diary, but she tells her life in this. And similarly to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, we don't actually know who this person she writes to is, but it kind of gets revealed, but it's not such a big mystery of who this person is like it was in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is set in the 1940s in New York, and it is about this young girl, Vivian, who escapes her life, which is kind of set out for her. She in that period before the Second World War, I guess, women were expected to marry. Even if they had an education, they were expected to just be housewives, and they were expected to be mothers. So that was their only role as a woman, basically, in society. So she really doesn't want to do that. She really doesn't feel at home in that milieu. So she moves to New York, where she has an aunt who actually owns this theater. So I really like this setup because it sounded like, especially because of the title as well, it sounded like it's going to be this really female-focused historical fiction set in this, glamorous period of our history. Right before, mainly before the Second World War. And yes, it was that to a certain degree. I really like that first part of the novel. That part is the part which really resonates with the title, I feel, City of Girls, because here we follow Vivian and her discovering herself, her sexuality, in this and this sudden freedom she has in New York, which she didn't have before. She really doesn't care about what people say, what would say. She just does what she wants. And I guess it comes also with the territory, all the, a bit of promiscuity, you would say, as well, because she's in this theater world where everyone is a bit freer and not so shackled by society's expectations and customs and those values, So I really like that part, also because I really like the main character. So right from the start, the story stuck me in because Elizabeth Gilbert is just such an amazing writer, but also because our main protagonist is kind of unlikable. She's very honest and brutal, and I really like that about her. She doesn't beat around the bushes. She just tells you straight out what the deal is, and I really like that about her. I think it made her really fresh and unique. So I really liked her discovering New York, meeting other people, discovering who she is, and just living this glamorous life, this City of Girl life, the one that the title really sets us up for. The second part of this book is quite different to the first one, and it made me feel like the book is too long, because, as you know, in the first part we were really much connected to these characters and really followed them almost like on a day-to-day basis. You were really immersed in their life and their story. That's like very detailed. Whereas the second part is you feel a bit more removed from the characters and the narrative, and it also speeds through a lot of years in this second part, and you really fail to connect, I guess. Also, it really takes us away from that City of Girl feeling. Of course, in a way, this is also like Vivian growing up and just another phase of her life, but I just feel that it was too different from the first part, and I really didn't really connect to her in this second part of the narrative. Overall, I enjoyed it. I really like, as I said, the writing style, unique characters, and I really like how we deal with women in this setting, because we have, of course, our main character Vivian, but there are other main female characters who bring a different dynamic to the story. There's also LGBT representation, which is done really well. So overall, I really like this, but I felt that the second part made me a bit removed from the story. I couldn't connect to it, and also I think because it really wanted to focus on Vivian's whole life, this kind of made the second part too long and made it too dragged out. So I enjoyed it, but unfortunately I did not like it as much as I hoped to, so I can only give it 3 stars. So the next book I picked up was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I did not mean to read this. Actually, I planned not to read this because I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and despite its popularity and despite its high ratings and rave reviews, I just thought it was okay. I love the writing style, I love the characters, I really immersed myself in the story, but maybe I just don't think it was for me. But I was then browsing the library some weeks before Christmas, and it was just there on the shelf, so I was like, oh, I have to pick it up, right? Also because many times the titles I want to read from the library are really, I have to put myself on hold for them. So I was like, this is meant to be if this popular book is right there on the shelf, right? So I picked it up. It wasn't a long one either, so yeah, I thought I'm gonna give it a go. I mean, why not? So everyone says that you should listen to this on audio because this is written in interview format. And I was also debating whether I should try to find the audio somewhere, either on Audible or through my library, but then I decided against it. In a way, I feel that a lot of people enjoy it more because they listen to it. Also, I think you really connect more to the characters if you listen to it than read it, as opposed to reading it, especially because it's in this interview format. But despite this, I didn't feel that I lacked connection to the characters. So let me tell you how it went. I like the first part of the novel because the first part focuses mainly on Daisy Jones, and I really liked her as a character. But let me tell you what this book is about if you actually haven't heard about it. Yeah, I think that's the thing I should start with, right? So anyway, this novel is about this lead singer, Daisy Jones, and how she became this very famous singer and popular, I guess, pop icon, or rock icon, I want to say. And how she ended up being the lead singer of this band, The Six, and how they wrote this really smashing album and how they kind of disappeared afterwards. So what happened surrounding the writing of that album. But the first part of the novel focuses mostly on Daisy Jones, a bit of her childhood, how she was a groupie in LA, how she was very beautiful, very talented, but also very popular. So she was almost like an influencer. I guess she was like an influencer before influencers were even a thing. So the whole theme of this book is just sex, rock and roll, and drugs. So that's basically what this is about, and the music industry in that period. So I really like the first part as it focuses mostly on Daisy Jones and how unusual her upbringing was and how she ended up in this environment. But overall, I think as we moved forward in the plot and the focus switched to this band and how they wrote this album and all the small like the small things happening in the band between the band members and all their lives and everything. I mean, yes, it was, I guess, representative of that period and that industry and the people in that industry. But at the end, I was thinking, why? Why am I reading this? Especially because I don't see the focus anymore on the characters as much. I don't really connect to them. But also, why am I reading this when this is about a fictional band and the fictional album? So I kind of my interest was kind of lost towards the end. So I give it 3 stars because I really enjoyed the first part about Daisy Jones, but also there's a lot of focus on drugs and drug addiction, and it doesn't really go into how to tackle drug addiction. I think it's mentioned over and over again how this is part of life, how that's how people lived back then and it was normal. But I thought it was quite upsetting. I mean, reading about it and having it there all the time, just the mention of how many drugs and medication she took just to be able to, just to be able to have a a semblance of a life, I guess. So, yeah. Maybe just Taylor Jenkins Reid, her novels are just not for me. Or maybe it's just the themes or she writes about, famous people or the music industry, or I don't know. I would be interested to pick up her next book if it's maybe about another type of topic. But let me not ramble on too much about this. Let's get on to the next book. The next book I read was The Secrets We Kept by Lara Prescott. So I picked this up because the premise sounded really interesting. So this is actually a debut, and this is set during the Cold War. And it is about these women working for the CIA who turned spies. So I was really looking forward to these suspenseful spy novels set during the Cold War, focused on women. What's not to like about that, right? But I feel that whoever wrote this premise did an amazing job to grab you in and make you read this book. But I'm wondering if the people who wrote the premise actually read the book, or they just tried to make the book sound more interesting. Because yes, this is about women turned spies who are somewhat involved in the smuggling out of Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago from the Soviet Union, but not in the same way. So let me tell you how it goes. This follows 2 different timelines and 2 different plot lines. So we have the West and then we have the East. The West storyline follows these CIA women who start out as just typing girls, like typists, and they work just simply as secretaries in the CIA. And there are just a lot of them, and there's a lot of different POVs, and I didn't feel too connected to these characters. So as the story moves forward, there is focus mainly on 2 of these, but their involvement in the second plot line, that of smuggling out this manuscript from the Russia, is not really that big. They are involved in it in a way, but it's not the James Bond spy type of involvement and action and suspense, you know what I mean? So Anyway, the second plot line is that of the East. And there we follow mainly Boris Pasternak's mistress, Olga, who is central to his efforts to try to publish this book. So this book was banned, Dr. Zhivago was banned in Russia, so it was forbidden from being published. And somehow they want to publish it outside of the Soviet Union. And Olga is kind of, she's really trying to get this book published in the right way in Russia. But she ends up actually in the Gulag for I don't know how many years, 2-3 years, because of this. So it's interesting to see how this book also focuses on women's role during the Cold War in the Soviet Union, because if you think about it, it's Boris Pasternak who wrote this novel, but it's his mistress who was punished for it. So yeah, I find that odd, and it's a really interesting take on the whole thing. And also I loved how we got a glimpse of a woman's life in the Soviet Union. So that's the second storyline, and I really like that. I think it was really well done. But I think what this book failed to do is bring these two together in a much more coherent way. And maybe the author tried to make this too historically accurate. Didn't take so many liberties with what happened, you know. But I think the novel would have benefited from taking more liberties from what actually happened. I think I'm gonna pick up her other books, because I mean, as a debut novel, as a debut author, you kind of evolve and get better, I guess, at what you do. And I'm interested to see where she goes and what she does next. But yes, I gave these 3 stars. So far it's quite an average reading month for me, right? Let's get on to the last book. So the last book I read in December was The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I picked this up because there was a whole section on mystery thrillers at the library when I was there, and I recognized the author and I recognized the title, and I just wanted to give it a go. I mean, I read quite a lot of mystery thrillers in these past months, and I quite enjoyed them, so I wanted to give another author a try. In this book we follow Emma, who when she was young, like 13-ish, she went to this camp called Camp Nightingale, which was kind of a camp for posh girls. She's from New York, and she was sent to this camp one summer because her parents just didn't want to, I guess they had other things to do anyway. She's sent to this camp where she kind of bunks with these girls who are older than her, because she went to the camp a bit late. Her parents dropped her up a bit later than she was supposed to be dropped off, and she doesn't have space with the girls her own age. So she bunks with these 3 older girls, like 2-3 years older, and she becomes friends with them. But then one night these girls disappear. So now fast forward in the present, Emma is this artist in New York. She is a painter, and she paints these really beautiful and haunting images. But they're all these images are all about her time at the camp. So, and she has this big exposition, and she's really becomes kind of popular. And these pictures catch the interest and the eye of the owner of the camp, who actually is planning to reopen it. And she invites Emma back to the camp as like a publicity stunt. Emma doesn't want to go, but in a way she feels like she has to, because she cannot put that part of her life behind her. She cannot paint anything else than what she's painting now, and she wants to also to find out what happened to those girls, because no one really knows. So she goes back there, and then things unfold from there. So I really like this premise, and I really like the writing as well. It's not flowery. It's just perfect, I think. It's really immersive and vivid, and I really enjoyed it from the start. I mean, even on the first page, I was like, this is well written, so I really like that. But ultimately, I feel that this wasn't that edge of the seat thriller I was expecting. It was more of a mystery, I believe. It was also in a way too long, and I don't know, I just didn't feel that, you know, that excitement which comes with reading with a thriller. It was a bit of a letdown. It's not like I anticipated the twists, because I didn't, but ultimately I feel that this book just failed to grip me. It just failed to connect me to the characters. I like that they were back and forth between the past and the present, and there were some twists and turns, of course, in there, like in every mystery thriller. But towards the end, I just felt that not much really happened, and the main characters just felt a bit stupid in her actions at some points, because she did not do the obvious, basically, and I just felt that didn't make sense. There was this big reveal at the ending, where, by which point, like, which felt unnecessary, basically. It was maybe added as a shock factor to really like resolve the mystery, but I don't think it was necessary. I think the book would have been stronger without it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get into spoilers, but ultimately I don't think this was the best mystery thriller I read. I think it's actually one of the worst I read. Yeah, I cannot give it more than 2.5 stars. Those are the 4 books I read in December. As I said, it wasn't the best reading month for me. I'm just hoping the books I'm gonna pick up next were gonna be better ones. But let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought about them. And I think I need to wrap this up now, because it's getting to be too long. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.